Hi everyone, today I want to show off how to manage external LEDs or NeoPixels with a note card to convey the status of note card connectivity. Now this is commonly used in the field to both test and monitor note card activity. This is appropriately called monitor mode when using LEDs and Neo monitor mode when using NeoPixels. You can also manage individual LEDs or NeoPixels, and I'll cover that as well. So let's wire up some examples together and see how this all works. Okay, here we have a pre-wired solution that's all ready to go with LED monitor mode. We'll just walk through all the pieces here quickly. On our left, we have a series of 3 individual LEDs, yellow, green, and red. The cathode is wired to the ground on the bottom here of my breadboard, and the anode at the top is each wired to a 10 kilo ohm resistor. And then each one is wired individually to either aux 2, 3, or 4. Now the way it's set up is the yellow is wired to aux 2, green to 3, red to 4. The reason behind this is whichever LED is wired to aux 2 on the note card, again, which is yellow in our case, is going to become a general purpose LED that's going to flash acknowledgements at us when there's activity on the note card, such as reading or writing to flash memory. Now the LED wired to aux 3, which again is green, is going to flash based on active network communications, so we'll see that the most. And lastly, the one wired to aux 4 is going to turn on for a couple minutes if there's a failure to connect to the network. Now you'll also see a momentary push button here in the middle. That's just a convenience for us to automatically send a note whenever that is pushed so we can initiate some of this activity. Now let's look at how we actually configure this. Now this is a brand new note card, fresh out of the box. So the first thing I always have to do is run the hub.set command. And I'm going to put this note card into continuous mode for our demo purposes, and then assign a product UID to attach it to an arbitrary project in NoteHub. Now to configure LED monitor mode, it's just one command using the card.aux API, and the mode is monitor. Now as soon as I press enter here and load this command up, we should see LEDs turn on. Sure enough, they do, registering network connection and some reading or writing to or from flash on the note card. So that is all you have to do to configure the note card to register LED monitor mode, and also how to wire it up. Now just to prove my point here, I'm going to disconnect my antenna here. That is going to prevent our LTE access. So I'm going to disconnect the LTE cable. So within, I'd say 30 seconds to a minute, we should see network activity is ceasing. And in the meantime, we can start looking at card.wireless requests to see where the note card is at when it's looking at network status. So right now it still thinks the network is up, and we'll fast forward in time here so you can see the red light turn on. And there we go, we've lost network connectivity. Now let's go ahead and reattach our antenna here. Next I want to show off a different concept, and that is to individually program LEDs. Now this is not actively monitoring anything. This is a separate mode of the card.aux API, which is called just LED. Now what this will do is when you're in LED mode, you can programmatically turn on or off any attached LED. So you do that by using the card.LED API after you've initiated card.aux mode of LED. In this case, our mode red means turn on the red LED, which is again attached to aux 4. And what do you know? It turns on. And we can go through and say, let's turn the yellow one on. And then we can likewise turn them off by using the off true argument. Now in this case, you can imagine wiring LEDs to your solution and just being able to programmatically enable or disable them as needed to reflect some kind of state in your solution. Next, I want to switch over to Neo monitor mode and show off using NeoPixels. Okay, here's everything wired up to use Neo monitor mode. I'll go through all the components and the wiring really quickly. On the far right is our power supply, so we're wired to a 9-volt lithium battery, so we can supply 5 volts to our very hungry NeoPixel strip. The NeoPixel strip is wired to our note carrier via aux 2. Likewise, we have another momentary push button wired to aux 1, and we have a common ground. So pretty straightforward wiring. Let's look at the configuration of the note card itself. And again, we are going to use the card.aux API here. This time we're going to use the Neo monitor mode. And we have some optional parameters here on the right. So let's go through those really quickly. Count 5 means how many NeoPixels in a strip do you want to use. You can use either 1, 2, or 5. In our case, since we have 8 NeoPixels, I'm going to use as many as possible. And there's an offset. The offset determines which NeoPixel in a strip you want to reserve for user programming, and we'll come back to that in a second, but in this case we're going to use the third one. The sensitivity is another optional argument. This lets you set the brightness of the NeoPixel. By default, NeoPixels are pretty bright, so we're going to cut that in half. And I'm going to send this over, and we can see, sure enough, we get some lights that are going great. Just so you know what all the colors mean, yellow is going to flash when there's activity on the note card, again, such as reading or writing from or to flash memory. White's going to flash when there's an active serial transaction. Green when there's active network communications. Blue when GPS is active. And red if there's a failure to connect to the network. Now I'm going to go ahead and send some notes here, and so we can see the green light up. And sure enough, there's some green showing some network activity. And if you look really close, you'll see that the third NeoPixel is not lighting up at all. That's because, again, we used the offset argument to reserve that third NeoPixel. Now, how do we program that NeoPixel? Well, that's with the card.led request again. This time, the mode that you supply is a custom color. So we have documented colors that you can use. In our case, we're going to use cyan. We're going to say on true, meaning turn on that third NeoPixel. Looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and change it to, how about green? There you go. And we can also turn these off. There you have it. That's how you use LEDs and NeoPixels in your note card powered application.